Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Welcome back, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Jesse James and Outcast for having me on the Dangerous Info podcast. Always a lot of fun talking with those guys and listening to what they have to say and getting their take on things. And it's always a great discussion, no doubt about it. So, again, much appreciated for the invite and always a great hangout. This episode right here, however, may not be very long, so I'm going to be brief with some of the comments here and some of the summaries on particular subjects that I want to bring up. But first, I want to start with what's being referred to as Project Freedom. Now, this is what the Promethean Action Gals have brought up, and I played one of their recent episodes or recent video summaries in the last war video. But there's a brief written summary here that kind of breaks this down. And I just want to go through this kind of quickly because, again, the timeline on us sort of being out of there formally as far as the Iran operation is concerned. And of course, I've been through the entire background of what I think is really going on over there, which is a very good thing. Which, by the way, I'll say this also, as high as gas prices are right now, I think they're going to plummet, and they're going to plummet big time. And I would venture to guess that they're probably going to be the lowest that they've ever been in rather short order here, certainly before the anniversary of our nation. So it's a prediction, but again, I trust what's going on here. I really do. We own the waterway. That's never been something that's happened before. Again, Admiralty law is now out the door, based on all indications. So this is going on here to reroute trade, and we are in complete control of that, and that part I love. So this is why, again, you can't watch a Fox News and all the Fox News alerts and listen to all the panicins because they don't know what the hell's going on. So anyway, here's a brief little summary. Again, Project Freedom is not merely a naval escort operation in the Strait of Hormuz. It's a bold strategic move by President Trump to wield America's energy abundance as a superweapon in the fight to diminish and dismantle the London-centered petrodollar system, revive the American system of economics, and end nearly 5 decades of globalist-controlled disintegration. It says on May 4th, of 2026, Trump announced Project Freedom. The U.S. Navy will begin escorting neutral country commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz starting the next day, on Monday, of course, this past Monday, and any interference will be treated as an attack. It is framed as a test of whether Iran's civilian negotiators actually control the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, occurring alongside ongoing positive U.S.-Iran discussions and Iran's admitted regime collapse. The Promethean Action Gals also basically say again that this is the latest salvo in Trump's American Renaissance, and that by flooding the world with U.S. oil and gas, as U.S. production has hit approximately 20 million barrels per day as of March of 2026, that Trump is driving down global prices, reviving American manufacturing, shrinking the trade deficit, and displacing London's control over oil pricing and the petrodollar architecture which was built after 1971. They also say again that the fight against the propaganda apparatus, from Walter Lippmann to Operation Mockingbird to today's censorship networks that defends the old system and attacks Trump. Again, that's one of the things that we're seeing, including, of course, individuals with massive accounts and massive followings who really have no idea what the hell is going on. And then the broader restoration of the American system also is one of the things that's taking place here regarding a physical economy, national sovereignty, industrial revival against the British Empire's 200-plus year war on it, echoed in the recent pamphlet, Bye Bye Globalism, The American System is Back, along with a parallel development like the United Arab Emirates walking away from OPEC, and the Pentagon standing up to $210 billion Office of Strategic Capital to rebuild U.S. industry. Again, what's going on here is a war game of all war games, because it's so strategic that you don't want the enemy countries to actually expose themselves for what they've really been doing, because they don't want to admit it. The UK doesn't want to admit that they've been running the entire operation over there for decades and decades and decades, way past our lifetime. Hence the revolution that took place over in Iran to begin with, because once you control that area, then you control the trade. And once you control the trade, then you can control the way that the money moves, and of course, who doesn't have to pay and who does, not to mention what actually gets shipped and what doesn't. So now that we're over there, and our military's been over there, and God knows when we really went over there, we could have gone over there back before 2020. But either way, we've been over there, and we're at a point now where, again, everything that you're seeing as far as Fox News is concerned or the TV news is all kayfabe, in my opinion. It's just fake. It's just drama, one Fox News alert after another. And of course, every single time that talking heads get on TV and start debating about this, what do they always say? Well, we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Again, it's in the Q posts. This has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. Those don't exist. That's just, again, more fear porn for people to buy into. But the operation is running stale in even those individuals' minds because they're basically saying, okay, we understand no nuclear weapons. And then they just rehash the same argument over again. Well, there's no indication that they had nuclear weapons and blah, blah, blah. And then they just, again, waste time discussing all of that. It's about way more than that fake storyline. This is about, again, dismantling the London banking system and trade and freeing this up and making it fair for everybody. Because if it's fair for everybody, then everybody can profit, as opposed to just some profiting at the expense of others. I want to read this too. This is from a Chris Rollins over on X, at the Power Audit, rather. And he apparently is a former 18C Green Beret energy investor, real-time aviation and maritime intelligence officer, and focused on the data, he says. He said the following here. He said, Trump just announced Project Freedom beginning Monday morning, Middle East time, and we are nearing the climax. Quote, as Trump said in one of his truth posts, if in any way this humanitarian process is interfered with, that interference will, unfortunately, have to be dealt with forcefully, unquote. Rollins went on and said, parse this carefully. He's sending U.S. warships to escort neutral commercial vessels out of the Strait of Hormuz, and if Iran challenges the escort, he has his trigger. If Iran lets them pass, the blockade is broken and Iran is humiliated. 35 tankers have taken off from Tel Aviv today. Saturday's total was 14. The evidence package for this move was built today by Iranian moves. And then he lays out some movements from some ships and basically says this is actually going down. He also said the following. He said this is a savvy legal move by Trump. On May 1st, War Powers Letters formally ends hostilities, preserve force posture, and asserts Article 2 constitutional authority. On May 3rd, Project Freedom was announced as a humanitarian operation, not military. And then on Monday, U.S. naval escorts neutral commercial ships through Hormuz under freedom of navigation rights. And then he finishes up and he says, if Iran fires on it, that is Iran starting a new conflict. Trump is responding defensively, not attacking. No new war powers clock starts because the U.S. did not initiate hostilities. Iran did. Again, it's perfect. It's perfect art of war. We're going to put ourselves in a defensive position. If you attack us, which is probably what some of them wanted to do, not all of them clearly, but some of the fringe element over there wanted to do, well, then that means that constitutionally it's game on. It's game on for us. We can come right back at you, and then the clock starts over again. And then we won't leave. We'll just stay there. What they don't know, but they do know, is that we can stay there as long as we want without congressional approval. We own the trade routes now. I mean, our military is escorting trade ships. So who's really in control? That's never happened before. Only with the removal of Admiralty law that was put in place by Britain in the first place, dating back, of course, to the Revolutionary War, only with that removal could we possibly even be there. Again, we're in charge of the Panama Canal. We're moving and escorting Venezuelan oil through the Panama Canal to other countries. And we're moving our oil as well. So the reason that costs are high right now is because we're not keeping it, we're shipping it out. But if we're shipping it out, what does that mean? It means we're selling it. So our country's making copious amounts of money right now. Now, yeah, that's going to come back to us. I have no doubt about that. But this is such a global war, and it's happening rather quickly. I mean, you're trying to undo, again, decades and decades and decades of criminality and deception and control in a very short amount of time. But I have no doubt that it's working. I have no doubt that it's happening. And again, if I was a betting person, and I will be in this scenario, I think that oil prices are going to drop dramatically in the United States, and it's going to happen at just the right time. Again, if we control the movement and we control the waterways, I think that's an inevitability. But I fully understand everybody's frustration right now, and again, it's an easy, lazy talking point. That, oh my gosh, look at gas prices. They're the highest they've ever been. This is terrible. It's always going to be this way. It's never always going to be that way. And again, if people can look beyond the curtain here and see what's actually going on, you'll understand that it's definitely not going to stay this way for much longer. Here was Joe Lang over on X also. He said the following, again, regarding a great deal of this. He said, so many people are missing just how much America is already being transformed. It's been happening since Trump was first sworn in. What happened in the past? Favored, quote-unquote, corporations got special treatment from the government. They got special treatment in order to funnel profits back into the pockets of the very politicians who protected and promoted them. What's happening in the present under Trump? Trump just posted this on Truth Social, quote, I made the USA $45 billion in 8 months. How did Trump make America $45 billion? Quote, Intel stock has surged over 385% since the U.S. took a 9.9% stake, with Trump saying the government's gain now exceeds $30 billion. This investment, quote unquote, is an unrealized gain that belongs to the American people. The politicians can't get their hands on this money, and Trump didn't use current tax receipts for this purchase. Quote, the Intel investment was reportedly funded by converting $5.7 billion in unpaid CHIPS Act grants and $3.2 billion from the Secure Enclave program into equity. The deal gave the government a passive, non-voting stake without a board seat. With a 9.9% holding, the U.S. government became Intel's largest single shareholder according to the figures provided. The agreement also includes a 5-year warrant allowing the government to buy an additional 5% of Intel shares at $20 each if Intel loses majority control of its foundry business, unquote. The American people are now the largest single shareholder of Intel. It was funded in unpaid grants from Biden's CHIP Act. Are you seeing the transformation? In the past, these big corporations were getting taxpayers' money while moving their manufacturing overseas. Now they are building their manufacturing in America so that Americans will benefit from Intel's success. It's now a partnership, quote unquote, between companies like Intel and the American people instead of a partnership between corporations and politicians at the expense of the American people. And they said art of the deal. Trump is placing the American people in a position to profit from these investments. That's why Trump keeps telling the American people that dividend checks are coming in the future. The government paying the people instead of taxing them and taking their hard-earned money. Trump keeps telling us in different ways that he's going to completely end income taxes. Now think about this. Look at your paycheck. Look at how much money the federal government takes from your check through income tax, quote unquote, and Social Security taxes. Imagine the American people suddenly getting to keep all of their hard-earned money, an instant big pay raise. Do you fully understand how much of our economy is going to grow? How about double-digit GDP growth? It's coming. And when Trump fixes the currency by backing the dollar with gold again, a golden age that none of us ever expected 10 years ago will completely change the lives of the American people. Trump is doing the opposite of past presidents. Anybody remember the term free market or free trade, quote unquote? Past presidents pushed free trade. Trump did the opposite by implementing tariffs. It's not only about returning manufacturing to America, the global cabal of elites and their puppets like George H.W. Bush were pushing free trade for a reason. I fell for that lie. NAFTA was one of the biggest scams on the American people. The American people were promised an increase in jobs and opportunity. The exact opposite happened. Our manufacturing was gutted, and many of our great cities were purposely put into decline. It was mostly about drugs. My article on NAFTA, they link it on their Substack, and then they wrap up and say Trump is now rebuilding the country through tariffs, while at the same time giving the American people a financial benefit from our manufacturing success. That's a massive safeguard for our future. Once the American people start receiving dividend checks from these investments, they aren't going to vote for people to take them away, unquote. The other thing, too, and you can see the Panicans even bringing this up regarding the checks, that when the time comes for these dividend checks to show up, regardless of their amount, the doomers and everybody are going to say, well, he's only doing this to get votes. He's only interested in this because it's our money anyway, and it's always been our money, so they're just giving us a little bit of a crumb in order to satisfy us, and then they're going to go away, and then that'll be the end of it. It's way more important than that. Everybody remembers, again, the COVID checks. I mean, that was complete nonsense by and large, but again, that was your own money back to you. That's not what the bad guys in government really wanted. They didn't want you to have more of your money back, but that was a positive move that was made by the Trump administration the first time around, and that was a good thing. There were those stimulus checks that were given out during the Bush administration after the financial collapse. Again, it was our own stolen money being given back to us, and everybody knows that. This is different now. It's the same concept, except what's happened behind the scenes was the destruction of the old guard, and that's a good thing. So, again, it looks the same, but it's not. And that's unfortunately because the American people are still watching Fox News, and they're still listening to the likes of Stu Peters, who just complain all of the time, and they're not analyzing information and seeing the bigger picture, let alone, again, what's going on behind the scenes. So, that's their take. I agree with it. And again, I've broken it down in past episodes before, but that's the real play here. And destroying the old guard is something that has to happen, and he's the only one who's been doing it. I want to play this clip real quick. This is about 3.5 minutes long from Peter St. Onge over on YouTube, and he's also on Rumble, if I'm not mistaken. Again, finance guy, and he specifically breaks down OPEC and what's been going on with OPEC, and again, how this is a very good thing. So give him a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
OPEC just lost its third biggest producer, the United Arab Emirates, better known as Dubai. Did America's drill baby drill end the most destructive cartel in history? After 58 years in OPEC, the United Arab Emirates last week suddenly announced it is leaving. The reason is they've been fighting for years to produce more oil, but the Saudi-dominated OPEC has said no. That left a third of UAE's capacity idle, leaving $30 to $40 billion on the table every year, about $250,000 per citizen household, basically telling a Ferrari to drive 25. So the background is OPEC, like any cartel, chokes output to keep prices high. This hurts customers. Everybody who drives or heats their house has to pay more, but it helps producers who get higher prices at the expense of selling fewer barrels, which has always caused friction in OPEC. The problem is that trade-off worked until America and Russia turned into oil superpowers, with Canada and even Brazil not far behind. To illustrate, the 1970s OPEC was almost 90% of global oil exports. Today, after we fracked baby fracked, OPEC is down to just over half. So half is still a big deal. The Hormuz is in the news, but it is not 90%. And it dramatically worsens the price for output trade-off for OPEC members when Americans and Russians are drinking their milkshakes. So who wins, who loses? For the moment, not much changes. The Strait of Hormuz is driving oil prices. But once the war is over, according to analyst Procurability, global oil prices could drop $5 to $10 on UAE alone, which is about 50 cents a gallon at the pump. It's great for countries that import a lot of oil, like Europe, Japan, and China. It's mixed for countries that are basically self-sufficient, like the U.S., and of course it is terrible for countries that export a lot of oil, especially Saudi Arabia and Russia. The wider question is, will other OPEC members follow Dubai out the door? Does the entire cartel break up? Because if that happens, It could drop oil prices closer to $20 compared to pre-war. You'd be looking at 40 to 45 bucks. You'd also be looking at a paradise of $2 gasoline. That would mean roughly $500 billion transferred from producers to consumers, which alone would also grow the entire world economy since oil and gas go into almost everything: factories, trucking, plastics, chemicals, cement, steel, fertilizer. Now, this is all catastrophic for Saudi or Russia, who might lose $100 billion between them. Be a gift from heaven for Europe and Asia. Together, they gain hundreds of billions worth of cheap oil. It's almost as good for the U.S. since we are still a net importer of oil, like Canada and Venezuela, but we've got a very big economy to benefit from cheaper oil. So cheap oil grows manufacturing, grows logistics, when America's got a lot more of that than it has oil fuels. Put it together, and America might get about $100 billion of benefit, which is $1,000 per household per year. So what's next, brought to you by the Bitcoin Way. Breaking OPEC would be the biggest transfer of wealth since the Marshall Plan, and it's mostly from the bad guys to the good guys. Whatever the war is doing on the ground, it has lit a fuse on key globalist institutions. Trump and NATO are this close to a street fight. Trump's musing about ditching the UN. Japan and Korea are ponying up for their defense. China has to actually pay for oil, and now OPEC could finally collapse.
I think it's going to happen because why else would they be doing what they're doing? These gas prices are going to plummet big time, cut in half at the very least. If it's like that for everybody, again, that alone stimulates the economy. People have more money, they save it, get out of debt, spend it on other things. That's always a good thing. So it's coming, and like I said, I think it's coming at just the right time. So moving on here, predictably, regarding the subject of education, as I brought up in a previous episode, not only, of course, is it prom time, but it's graduation time, so it's only a matter of time before the graduation speeches kick off and start going viral on the internet per usual, along with all of the twerking and the chair flipping and the shenanigans that take place at some of those institutions. But there were nationwide prom deaths also. Let's see, March of 2026, Douglas County, Georgia, 18-year-old high school senior Patience Price was killed in a crash after her school's prom. Chapel Hill High School, she was ejected from the vehicle. Speed was a factor. 2 others were injured. April 2026, Memphis, Tennessee, 18-year-old Ladanian Kathy was shot and killed at a gas station hours after attending his prom. A 17-year-old was arrested. April into May 2026, Polk County, Texas, a 20-year-old man was killed in a shooting at a large after-prom gathering. 3 people were charged. May 2026, Indianapolis, Indiana, a woman was killed and 3 others injured in a shooting at a post-prom party at a short-term rental home. There's a pattern with all of that, too, and it just so happens that the vast majority were black, if not all of them. So, yeah, heads up on prom night, but again, it's a constant theme. It happens every single year, and I bet it wouldn't happen if they just didn't have the activity. But they have the activities anyway, year after year, like some sadistic ritual, and there you have it. Again, you would even think that those schools, with those particular students and those prom activities, certainly when a death occurs and a murder, you would think that they would look at one another and say, well, we're not going to have this next year because these individuals aren't learning, and these gatherings of these people getting together is inviting some of the worst to show up and then retaliate, whether they be gang-related or whatever. But let's just not have the activity because, again, we don't want a loss of life, and we don't want to set the table for a loss of life. But they don't do that. They say, well, the actions of one don't speak for the actions of everybody, and we don't want to ruin it for everybody because the vast majority of the people are law-abiding citizens and XYZ. I get that take. I fully understand it. But the school environment, as we all know, is not known for taking responsibility for anything. They're known for deflecting. Their powers of rationalization are limitless, and they will engage in it all of the time, year after year. So I understand that I just read a handful there. There are probably more that took place. Not to mention, of course, sexual assaults, things of that nature, and then again, other car accidents and things that were related to prom night. I mean, they don't get a ton of coverage. Sometimes it's just a local issue, and then, of course, local media buries it because they want to keep it as close to the vest as humanly possible. They don't want state media to figure it out, and they certainly don't want national media to figure it out because, again, it rains on their parade. It's unfortunate, but it happens year after year, so now that prom is basically done with, next comes graduation, and that's always a good time. Again, there are some banger graduation speeches. I promise I'll play them here on the show because year after year there typically are. Now there was this one, unrelated but still education. This is from Red State earlier this week, just the other day. Woke University of Oregon treats ICE agents like active shooters in emergency alerts. Sure, why wouldn't they? They're communists. The university is anyway, not the ICE agents, and they have to trick everybody into believing that, again, ICE is the enemy. This is the social engineering. This right here is the psychological operation. It says the University of Oregon is weaponizing its official emergency alert system against federal law enforcement by adding ICE presence, quote-unquote, notifications to the same university alert platform used for active shooters, fires, and or other imminent life-threatening dangers. Sanctuary campus radicalism on steroids, folks, they said. Beginning on May 5th, according to the Daily Emerald, a student-run news organization at the University of Oregon, of course a left-wing rag, because most of them are, students and employees will receive urgent emails and texts whenever immigration enforcement activity is confirmed on campus. The newspaper obtained a university-wide email from Associate Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students Jimmy Howard, stating that reports of ICE presence on campus will be confirmed within minutes. They are treating the presence of federal law enforcement like any other risk, as an imminent threat to health and or safety to the campus community, quote-unquote. In a sane world, the alert system would be used to confirm the presence of an illegal alien on campus, individuals using university resources meant for Americans or illegal immigrants, as opposed to targeting law enforcement. They're also used, by the way, for active shooters. And if someone is on the loose, who is a criminal who is running away from police. Well, isn't that what illegal aliens are doing? They went on and they said these clowns are effectively treating Border Patrol and ICE officers as they do their jobs. I may have said threatening. It says treating, but either way, effectively protecting students and staff from criminal illegal aliens as a threat on par with mass violence. They prioritize illegal immigration over public safety. It says here's a news bulletin from the students who go to the University of Oregon and their parents who send their kids there. Twisted priorities get people killed. Another elite campus recently learned the hard way what happens when universities treat actual public safety as an afterthought. At Brown University, a custodian repeatedly warned security about a suspicious man, a legal permanent resident, through the Diversity Immigrant Visa Program, casing an engineering building for weeks. Red flags everywhere, but those warnings were ignored, and the result was a deadly active shooter attack that killed 2 students and injured others. How does this compare? Brown University was accused of disabling security cameras as a means to protect illegal immigrants and or pro-Palestinian agitators on campus, making it challenging to identify a suspect and prolonging the case. That incompetence also allowed the shooter to murder MIT professor Nuno Lareio, if I'm saying that right, at his home 2 days later. This is what sanctuary campus radicalism looks like in practice. Universities that freak out over federal law enforcement while turning a completely blind eye to the real threats. It says this isn't exclusively a University of Oregon issue, it's a blue state issue. Oregon's new Safeguarding Students and Families Act, House Bill 4079, forces every public school and university in the state to create an official alert system for ICE activity on campus. Well, of course it does. It says the law signed by Governor Tina Kotek, Democrat, on March 31st is set to take full effect on September 30th. but schools can roll out the notifications even sooner, rather, if they choose. The University of Oregon jumped all over that option, unquote. Again, it's perfect social engineering. It's perfect panic. It's a constant psyop all of the time. Download our app. It'll buzz in your pocket. There will be an alert. You'll be a slave. If we say stay put, lock your doors, hide your local illegal alien, fight against the federal government, then that's exactly what you should do. And if you get in our way or you don't download the app, then we'll remind you to download the app and we'll pressure you until you do so, and so on and so on and so on. I mean, my God. They actually have the audacity to convince people that these are environments where actual learning of real American history and real worthwhile skills are taking place. You must be joking. It's slavery. I don't know how else to describe it. It's horrific, and it's just slavery. Now, to prove that point, let me slide right into the jab talk here. Of course, there was some sort of recent virus, quote-unquote, that hit a cruise ship that was, I believe, taking off from Argentina and moving its way toward Cape Verde in the Atlantic Ocean. But it's not a virus, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a bunch of jabbed people who wanted to travel from point A to point B, and 3 people died on board. And it has the exact same symptoms as so-called COVID, and they refer to this as the hantavirus. Again, why anybody believes this is beyond me. It's coming, of course, from the WHO, the World Health Organization, so they can't be trusted. And they use these moments, again, to socially engineer people and to get them to run to your local Walmart and get all the free shots you possibly can, because God knows how this is spreading. And typically, again, in normal fashion, they refer to this as a rodent-built or rodent-infected virus. So it's spread through rodent droppings or urine or saliva or a dead rat or whatever. Well, if that's true, and a dead rat got into the buffet line inside of the mac and cheese aisle or something of this particular cruise ship, and people ate it, yeah, they'd get sick. But that's called being poisoned. That's what that is. That's terrain theory in a nutshell. It's not germ theory. It's just terrain theory. You've taken poison, you've put it in your terrain, your body, and then you get ill. But then again, when it comes to travelers in general, certainly cruise ship attendees, how many of them are jabbed? You have to assume, I would think, a great deal of them, certainly in a foreign country. So you can always count on the WHO taking a situation like this and doing whatever they have to do to spin it and then make everybody panic so that grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, and God knows who else runs to, again, a Walmart, a Walgreens, and just loads themselves up with as many shots as humanly possible, in particular, if they plan on going on some vacation or a cruise. I'm shocked this doesn't happen more often. But frankly, I'm sure it does, almost on every single cruise line. Why wouldn't it? Again, you get that many people in the same room together in close proximity, they're shedding on each other like nobody's business. You have no idea how many people around you are jabbed. And then when a person gets sick, you just go, well, they got sick because people get sick. It's more complicated than that. People get poisoned from being around other people who have been poisoned. That's a very real thing. So, again, just wanted to make quick mention of that, but yeah, it's poisoning. That's all. It's just straight up poisoning. Now, speaking of poison, here's Dr. Fauci. There's some rumors going around that Dr. Fauci is not going to be held accountable by the DOJ regarding the timeline of his perjury charges, potentially. Again, if they let the perjury slide, that doesn't bother me, because I don't think that perjury is the big crime when it comes to Dr. Fauci. And I think that we know that. And I just want to revisit a quick little piece of old audio back when Dr. Fauci was testifying, I believe, to the House Oversight Committee, if I'm not mistaken. And they play audio from Fauci describing, again, how you need to pressure people And the more you pressure people in school environments and the more you pressure them in their work environments, the more likely they are to get rid of their so-called ideological bullshit. This is why Anthony Fauci belongs in prison. This is why he should be executed for crimes against humanity, in my humble opinion. Give Anthony Fauci a listen here, again on recorded phone call from that hearing in 3, 2, 1.
You were going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated. Yeah. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Thank you. Are all objections to COVID vaccinations ideological bullshit, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and that's not what I was referring to.
Well, that's exactly what you meant when you said making it hard for people to live without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated, to actually flourish in American society, to self-determine, as we're all given God-given rights. Shame on you.
See, that was Anthony Fauci being honest Anthony Fauci. That's who he is. He was being that honest. He believes that. That's his approach. That's his motivation. We're going to ram things down people's throats, and we're going to use every means necessary to get them to take what we want them to take. He's been doing that since the 80s with AZT and the whole AIDS lie. The COVID thing was just, again, a recycled AIDS lie. Absolutely astounding. But again, that's what he's going to go down for. He's not going down for tax evasion. He's going to go down for murder. Certainly metaphorically in this case, he's going to go down for far worse than that. Lying about funding, lying about tampering with evidence, lying about gain of function, 1,000 things. Okay, 2 more things here real quick. The presidential fitness test is back, as a proclamation was signed here on May 5th of 2026 by President Donald Trump, again emphasizing youth physical fitness, returning to traditional athletic standards in schools, and so on and so on. Again, I'm not against it, but when it comes to the digital age and the information age, you do not need school to engage in physical fitness. You can download an entire physical fitness application on your cell phone, do a 3-month program, purchase very little equipment for far less than $100. Keep that equipment for a lifetime and just pick an exercise program and do it. A little each day. One routine every single day, and anybody will be in the best physical shape of their life. It's that simple. You don't need American school to accomplish that. You don't need a proclamation to accomplish that. Anybody can do that anytime that they want. And any K-12 school student, so to speak, can do that on their own at home anytime they want. Again, much like most school programs, it's designed to get people to hate the thing that they're doing in school. Again, a lot of music programs are counterproductive because they actually drive people away from wanting to play music and learn an instrument. Same thing with art, same thing with physical education. I'm not saying that the opposite can't be true. It certainly can. A lot of those programs motivate people to want to play music or draw or learn about art history or become physically fit. That happens also. But the school environment itself also creates a poison and a detractant, wanting to keep individuals away from those particular programs, almost by design. And that is, again, part of the unfortunate scheme that does exist behind the scenes. Certainly based on old CIA paperwork and 1,000 other things, is we're going to make things so miserable in a school environment that people won't want to take care of themselves. And then, of course, that leads to a depopulation agenda, and then they end up withering away and becoming a lifetime member of the pharmaceutical industry, which, as we all know, is not a good thing by any stretch. So that's my 2 cents on that. Again, great for the proclamation, rather, but that's not the solution. The solution is self-responsibility. It's, again, personal responsibility and looking into this information on one's own time and realizing how easy it is to become physically fit these days. It's just too easy. So I'll end with this one. It's primary day. This is a shorter episode here. I'm going to hang it up now, but Casey Putsch, again, if you live in Ohio, please vote for him. Marcel Sturbich for Secretary of State. Jay Edwards, if you want, for treasurer. Beyond that, Ohio needs a victory. And again, when you look at the polls that exist for Vivek Ramaswamy, they look just like Hillary Clinton's polls from 2016. I mean, the Ohio Republican Party is out there gaslighting endless people, saying that Vivek has a 92% chance of winning. Why would you say that and belittle all of the American voters, and specifically Ohio voters, during a very important primary, I would argue, our most important one ever? Certainly when it comes to, again, data centers and Somali fraud and H-1B visas and higher taxes and 1,000 things. Why would you do that to the Ohio voter unless you yourselves were a criminal organization as a Republican committee in Ohio? It's so insulting. People should get out and vote for Casey Putsch just because they're being insulted to their faces by the establishment. And if people don't recognize the establishment for what it really is at this point, then you're lost and you're not going to make it. Again, that's my opinion, but I'll come back in the next episode on Friday and, of course, provide full updates. I just pray that the right thing happens, and if it doesn't happen this time, I just pray that the right thing happens eventually. Whether that's Vivek gets caught doing something that he shouldn't, he gets impeached, whatever it is, but he belongs in jail. And I think it's remarkably unfortunate that voters are so lazy in the state of Ohio and around America that they don't even want to look into anybody's past to see if they belong in jail or not. And then they actually go out and vote for them with a smile on their face. Blows me away. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, have a great day, and I'll catch you on Friday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.